Today we have with us Justin Soyke, and he's going to be presenting my first Phish, the SAIGA Saga. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to see so many people turned out after last night's party. I'll try and make this quick so we can get out to lunch, or based on how everyone looks, back to the room to have a nap. So my name is Justin Soyke, and I currently work as a security engineer at Red Piranha. It's a bit of a generic title, but simply put, I get to do some pretty cool stuff. Everything from hacking to defending to the more boring stuff like writing reports or attending meetings. So I have a bachelor's degree in IT and network security. I don't have any certs. Cybersecurity has been a bit of a passion for mine for the last 15 years. I might say passion, but at this point it's definitely more like a healthy addiction. Outside of work, I spend far too much time participating in CTF competitions. Solo, of course, because I'm not a team player. I've just been doing them for 4 years now, so at this point it doesn't make sense to do it with someone else. So this talk will be coming from the context of the first phishing investigation I had been a part of since working in cybersecurity. But this does not necessarily mean the actual content of the talk will be beginner friendly, so there'll be a bit of assumed knowledge. So if there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me at the end. So in this talk, I'll be speaking to you about a phishing investigation we conducted at Red Piranha into a previously unknown phishing as a service group, which upon publishing our research, they abandoned their entire operation within a couple of days of publishing our research. So I'll be going through some of their code, some offset failures, and a bit of a dive into who they are and how they operated. They unfortunately spun up a new group about 2 months later, but I'll go into this a bit later. Before getting into the investigation, I'll be starting off with some discussions about phishing and some annoyances I've had with the cyber threat marketing, intelligence industries. I kind of get those mixed up a bit. Then I'll go into the main topic, which is, of course, the group known as Saga, and then I'll finish things off with key takeaways. So I don't have a dedicated section for tips, advice, and most of these will be random and unorganised, kind of like my ADHD brain. And a bit of a disclaimer, if you're investigating some kind of threat, whether it be phishing, malware, or other threat actors, ensure that your OPSEC is in check and be safe. And remember, hacking is still hacking, so don't take your investigation too far. So this is the schedule. So this section will be split into 2 parts. First up will be phishing, and then I'll go into CTR a little bit. It's mostly just a bunch of random thoughts, so yes. I won't be explaining what phishing is, and if you don't know what this is, you are at BSides. I don't know how you slip past security, but... So you might be thinking, I know how to spot a phish. There's no way I'll fall to some silly phishing campaign. I know everything I need to know to look out for. So typos and bad spellings are a thing of the past. Welcome to the future of AI. Maybe a generic greeting. If you got an email like this, chances are you're not the only target. And you're one of the tens or hundreds of thousands of people who got the same email. These types of campaigns are often low skill with a low success rate. Some groups are using somewhat of a partial automated spear phishing, which can automatically generate content of the emails based on like a list of emails or information from like lead generation services, and can automatically add like company logos and stuff. So same minimal effort, but with much higher success rate. So this email is safe. I always check with VirusTotal. So it's easy to get 0 detections with a bit of encoding, mix of crypto, and a sprinkle of XOR. Static testing will almost always fail when it comes to these type of code. Dynamic or behavior testing has a little bit higher success rate, but it's still not a guarantee. For example, maybe the initial email is safe, but it just has a link or a QR code. How many redirections are there? And how many of these redirection domains or services are trusted? The actual phishing page could be several redirections deep, and if there's a capture anywhere along the way, that's going to make it a lot harder for automated tools. Speaking of VirusTotal or public submission sites, I hope you stripped out your email headers before uploading, because if not, congrats, you've just made your email and potentially sensitive information public. And if you're investigating some kind of threat, you've likely just tipped off the adversary. If there's no public information about that threat, you need to take extra precautions to ensure that they don't know that you're investigating, pretty much. Threat actors Google themselves just as much as you do, so if it's public, there's a pretty good chance they'll know about it. Adversary in the middle is so old. I use phishing-resistant email, phishing-resistant MFA, so even if I click the link, there's no way they can get into my account. It's been around for a while, but considering almost all modern phish kits use some form of this, it kind of shows how effective it is. But congrats for setting up this good MFA. Did you disable the bad MFA and enforce a good MFA? Or can you simply use your password instead of the passkey? And more importantly, did you test it? Conditional access policies are kind of complicated, so ensure that you set these up properly, but don't ask me, that's not my job. So when it comes to CTR, when it comes to investigation, how deep is too deep? Own a group IOC, someone else can investigate. But who? If everyone's simply posting their IOCs without some kind of investigation, then what are we really, what is this really helping with? Domain and infrastructure can be spun up in minutes, so this does not really slow them down. Who cares about providing useful intelligence? It's not important. Writing an article about an emergent threat with no information about that threat, and instead adding a message, IOCs are on our platform, sign up now. Is that threat intelligence? No, that's marketing. That doesn't help anyone but yourself. If all the big players in this space can do proper threat reports for IOCs, then why can't you? So is a screenshot of a hack forums post CTR? No. As someone defending, what are we supposed to do with a screenshot? Especially when that screenshot's redacted, so we have to try and find that initial post just to find out that this group hasn't even started this operation yet, they're just looking for beta testers, so that's not useful. Get AI swap out of here. This is directed at you, vendors, students, or anyone else. This makes our job harder because we're pretty much forced to sift through this nonsense that's often filled with hallucinations or false information. That's not to say AI can't be useful with CTR. It can be, it can help a bit, but just not in the threat reports. AI swap is good for product reviews, recipes, or summarising AI summarised articles. But threat intelligence is not one of those places. And going deep never results in anything good. But how do you know unless you try? If every company just spent that extra 30 minutes just going a little bit deeper, it'd make quite a bit of a difference. You don't need to be a security company or threat intel company, anyone can do it. And you never know. Maybe what you provide will be the missing piece of the puzzle. Maybe it's their first instance of a new campaign starting up. Maybe the threat actor screwed up with their OPSEC and it's the one time they made that mistake. So to summarise, good CTI is actionable, meaning the information you provide is usable or can be acted upon to help us defend against that threat. Reproducible. If someone else is able to pick up that investigation from where you finished without having to start over from scratch. Useful. It contains more than just a list of bad hashes. Include domains, IPs, and TTPs as best as you can. The more information you can provide, the more useful it is, since it provides much more context and can help us figure out who they are. And bad CTR is paywall. If you're only helping your own customers, then who is that really helping? What about your customers? What happens to you when your customers all get shut down and they obviously can't afford to pay their security? Redacted. Screenshots or IOCs with IOCs redacted. This is more common with your paywall threat intelligence, but why is this even a thing? PII or sensitive info, sure. But IOCs, who exactly are you trying to protect here? Because it's certainly not against the victims. Rushed or limited value content. It's not a race to be the first to post, and instead you should be racing to provide the most valuable, reproducible, and actionable content. And AI slop, already said what I said. So now that I've finished ranting, let's move into the main topic, which is, of course, SAIGA. So who is SAIGA? SAIGA or SAIGA Group is a threat actor that primarily operates out of Telegram. They've been active from late 2023 to early 2024, and based on their investigation, there's a strong indication that at least some of their core members are based out of Nigeria, with, of course, a focus on financial crime. Here's some of their campaign statistics. So now that you have a bit of an overview, let's take a step back and start from the start. So the initial investigation started when we were notified of a successful phish against a business linked to one of our clients. After the initial investigation, we had some early indicators of how they operated. But there was no public information about this group whatsoever, and with the phishing kit itself being vastly different to most other things out there, we decided to conduct a much deeper investigation. So the initial email contained a link to a suspicious Google Sites page. This itself was unrelated to SAIGA and was more of a not-so-good attempt by the threat actor who was using the service to make it harder to detect. But remember what I was saying from earlier? Using trusted services or trusted redirection can make it much harder to detect. So for instance, this is going to show up in your DNS logs as google.com. That's not going to make anything look like a red flag. And this brings us to the phishing page now. So it looks like a standard phishing page or Microsoft login, I guess. But under the hood, it's using Express and Next.js, which at the time and even now, I don't really see that often. So I won't be going into the phishing investigation itself, the phishing interaction. If you want to know more information about this side of things, you can read the full article on our blog. I'll add a QR code at the end of it. So now we have one domain. What's next? Well, you gather as much static information as possible to find more of these same phishing sites. So JavaScript, any images, favicons, which this didn't take long since the favicon and most of the other assets were all static and unique to this phishing kit. So now we have a bigger list of domains and infrastructure. So what's next? So at the moment, we still had no idea on the scale or the name of the group. All we had was domains and infrastructure. So we started to look into the Telegram bots, and we saw a name pop up in quite a few of them, SAIGA. So the OSINT process resets. So after Googling, and more Googling, both with and without Googling, we found more leads. We came across a TikTok profile that had a profile picture of the actual SAIGA log output, which was kind of interesting. So this is where the fun really begins. The Telegram channel had over 1,000 members, over 2 years of content to sift through. Many messages, videos, images. Additional OSINT led to discovering code repositories plus other information, which I'll go through in the next section. So as mentioned, the further OPSEC, further OSINT led to code repos. One was the installer of the phishing client, so to speak, which downloaded additional code for senders and other scripts. Essentially, this would be what the threat actor would install when they purchased the service. It allowed them to create phishing templates, send emails, monitor progress, status, etc. And downloaded other code and scripts. So some of the initial code repositories had hundreds of commits, with the later ones having binaries, but the earlier ones had code, and contained everything you'd expect to find in a threat actor's code repository: hard-coded API keys, credentials, and other useful information. The initial script downloaded a file code.js from a remote server. What do you think would happen if you downloaded main.js? Yes, their API server code, which sent backups of their user licenses to one of their Telegram channels, which we'll go into a bit later. So back to Telegram. It contained years of cybercrime and advertisements. But note, since it's a channel, only admins can post to this channel, so anyone posting had some link to SAIGA itself. The types of crimes included like fraud, identity theft, selling of services and access to services, like lead generation, email sending, email accounts, hack servers, phishing services, hosting, etc. Just thousands of messages, thousands of images, videos, etc., which was quite valuable into understanding their operation, including who they were, or at least their country of origin. We found this through audio, images, and pictures of some of their members, via reflection of their laptop screens. And a bit of a fun fact, on more than one occasion, some of their members accidentally sent what looks to be selfies to the credential dump bots. So I'll flick through some random images from the Telegram channel now. You likely won't be able to see the actual text, but it's not that important. So this one shows access to an email that they've gotten from credentials. It has code in the background, various scripts and other things running. And this is another one. I didn't add that red line. They tried to redact that image themselves, but they definitely didn't look at the window title. This also, as you can see, has code repositories. They use ChatGPT in the background. Yeah, admin is definitely up. This is another one, just more code, random script outputs, etc. All of the pictures were similar to this, so you could imagine how long it took to comb through all of this. And this one's one of my favourite. So with all this useful intelligence, how did they remain undetected for so long? I honestly don't know. This group operated for over a year. They had a lot of followers on social media. And most of the victims weren't just random Gmail, they were all business accounts, education, government, etc. Which means either no one knew anything, or our industry just simply weren't doing their jobs. Alright, I'll go through some of their code in the next sections, but I won't be going through any reverse engineering steps as it's out of scope of this. But as a quick reverse engineering 101, when looking at like phishing, just look for what's called an eval and change it to print. It's the easiest way to get a bit of a quick win without having to try and figure out what's going on. And if you stare at the code long enough, this will be kind of obvious, but be safe. Alright, let's start with the installer. So This would simply just install Node.js and sets up a few things, clone some repos. This one says Saga mailer, but it's actually just a license generation and validation script. If you have a valid license, it'll download additional code, and if not, it'll give you a license to send to the bot. But I'm sure you can see that's what it's doing, right? No? Okay, what about now? And this next one was used to generate encoded files, sets up templates, configs, and includes some additional email sending functionality. Supports a range of proxies and different attachment types, readable version. So the various code in the repos were quite unorganized and honestly a bit of a mess to look through, so it was kind of difficult to work out what was happening. So this one generated different attachments that would be used, and as you can see, that's some of the different encoding and encryption types that they supported. So they could automatically translate like email content to whatever language they wanted. It's kind of interesting. And it's also used as a bit of a configuration tool. I've removed a few lines of this one to make it a bit easier to read. I left the banner because I thought it looked kind of cool. So this next one downloads emails, extracts email addresses obtained from the captured credentials through the phishing campaigns. They can automatically generate new phishing email based on extracted information, and also supports sending emails to the extracted email addresses from within the compromised account. I'll go through a few of these examples now. So this was one of the ways that they sort of spread. They'd create an attachment, then send the attachment to someone and say, don't let this person know, and then they'd pay the deposit. And another example, all of the blanked out squares are company logos and QR codes, etc. And finally, that API server code, but oops, I don't think they were meaning to share this one. So as I mentioned before, there was quite a bit of a mess in the code repositories, and there's a lot of code to go through, a lot of duplication, so it's hard to work out what's going on. So after looking to SAIGA for a bit, in some of the earlier commits, they had references to F pages. SAIGA in there is called this S pages. This repo mostly contains fishlets and somewhat of a customized GoFish. So this led to discovering a repo for F pages, which had very similar code to the earlier SAIGA code. Digging into that a bit, they had another repo called admin, and there was another Telegram bot token. So not only did this Telegram channel contain your standard credentials or logs, it contained every log from every user who had purchased that service. So during the investigation, we couldn't find a definite link between F pages and SAIGA. We discovered at least one link due to similar usernames, but it wasn't 100%. So we came to three possibilities. F pages is SAIGA before creating SAIGA, or it's just what they called their tools. Mods or other users of the service had a fallen out because their logs were being logged. So they took the code and created SAIGA. Or group members got banned, and so they pivoted. I'd say this one's probably more likely since F pages, a lot of the code repositories are still active, and they had the same OPSEC values as SAIGA, so pretty strong link between them. So they also like hard-coded API keys, credentials. And this brings me to the next section, the downfall of SAIGA. So within days of publishing our research, the entire group abandoned the complete operation, so everything SAIGA was deleted. They really did leave in a bit of a panic. This Telegram channel was the same one that I showed earlier. So all social media, Telegram channels, bots, code, repos, all infrastructure was taken down. And since their API server and dashboard functionality was so fundamental to this phishing service, shutting that down meant not a single phishing domain remained functional. So no API server means no more phishing, which means no more victims, which to me is winning. So unfortunately, they didn't shut down for good. Within months, they spun up a new group, which I'll go into next. So SAIGA returns. We have a new paint job, new name, SCOML skills. Good, no one laughed, I guess no one knew the meaning of that word. But don't Google it, because I might get in trouble. But I guess more recently, they're calling themselves SCOML Engine. So what's changed? Not much really, same OPSEC values with a new front end and a bit more heavier use of AI. The phishing kit itself remained relatively untouched and mostly reused the same assets, so a lot of the ISEs are the same and can be discovered just as easily as last time. But I guess I have a new captcha and move the Telegram bot token to the homepage to make it easier to find, I guess. So I've been watching this one for a bit. Until recently, they're still in testing and development stage. And since this group isn't public yet or hasn't been discovered by anyone, does that mean I can call it an O-Day? So what's next? Well, you'll have to stay tuned for a new article that will be coming soon. But before I move on, if this group abandoned their operation so quick and spun up a new one so quickly, this tells me it's not the first time they've done this. So then, let me ask you this. Who were they before SAIGA? Now onto the key takeaways. So don't trust VirusTotal or other platforms. I don't mean as a company they can be good. I meant don't rely 100% on the information they provide, because they can never be 100% effective. And please strip out your email headers before uploading your .email. Just do a simple find, replace, problem solved. Grabbing the ISEs and posting the ISEs doesn't really help. Try to provide as much information you can, domains, IPs, and TTPs, as it can give a much better context and can be a lot more helpful. And stop redacting ISEs, because that's a bit of a pain. So going deeper and spending a little bit more time can help quite a bit, and anyone can do it. If your CTR can't be reproduced or actionable, that's not intelligence, it's marketing. Here's a QR code to our research post, but thank you for listening. Any questions?
Thank you, Justin. So do we have any questions from anybody? Oh, there we go.
Thanks, Justin. Enjoyed the talk. Did you have a look at, say, using something like URL scan and fingerprinting up the infrastructure and kind of keeping your tabs on it over a long period of time?
Pretty much, it was like a daily occurrence. I'd check URL scan, check FOFA. They're two of the better ones, because the other ones you had to pay a bunch to get the same service, but they're good and they normally pop up quite quickly, so it's good. FOFA is good because it's easier to determine the IP addresses rather than, because they all use Cloudflare, so it's a bit harder. So
Yep.
Great talk, Justin. I was just wondering if you knew who they were actually before SAIGA. Did you find that out?
Sorry, what was that?
Like before SAIGA, you said they could have.
No, I haven't.
Oh wow! So that's still something you're looking forward to. All right. Thank you.
Excellent. Let's thank Justin again. Thank you.